Now, as discussed previously, most of the lands adjacent to the Rio Grande and Rift's Earth are claimed by the Pecos Empire, despite the fact that most of the larger settlements want nothing at all to do with them, and there's no real actual structure. There's no roads, no specific government, no court system, nothing. It's largely just a bunch of quasi-independent bandit groups and various DV tribal nomads who call the region home and use it as a place to like stage raids out into the greater continent and beyond. However, they're not the only ones that lay claim to the region. The Rio Grande is also quite infested with vampires. It's a large chunk of the reason why you have such a presence of Psy Stalkers on the Texas side of the Rio Grande border. But on both sides of the river, you will find tiny little pockets of secondary and even the occasional master vampire hiding amongst humanity and feeding. And in many ways, able to get away with this easier because of the prevalence of the great deception that has been going on in northern Mexico for quite some time now, and which is by all the various vampire intelligences purposely staging a bunch of feral vampires in the region to create this idea that Mexico is just a wasteland of just demonic, mindless vampire creatures that'll hunt and kill anything that they come across without thought. By creating this sort of idea about what vampires are and the common public conscious, people are thus less likely to be looking for the intelligent type of vampires that use a bit more stealth and cunning to hide amongst humanity, because they still possess personalities, intelligence, and still want to be able to have clothes and find things and entertain themselves and have a steady, renewable resource of blood. So, having their own little cults of followers and hypnotized servants and all that kind of juicy, juicy goodness. Now, in recent years, because of Doc Reed and his vampire hunting rangers, publication of the knowledge that they've gathered about how vampires function biologically and how to properly fight them has become more widely publicized in the region. There's ever-growing amounts of actual vampire hunters. Ironically, some of those vampire hunters are themselves puppets of vampires. One organization in particular that's brought up under the umbrella of the vampire army that's secretly operating out of Tombstone is this cult, a religious cult that they just call the Blood Cult. I feel like you can dress it up a bit more and kind of maybe portray it as like a Blood of Christ kind of thing if you want to really like disguise it for the player characters so they don't realize what's going on until it's too late and all that. Offering religious comfort to protect people from vampire attacks, that seems to, be legitimate, except it's actually, they're being used and harvested to collect their own blood to feed the vampires that run the church and all that kind of stuff. And those vampires can then control, when and where feral vampire attacks occur, so that it seems as if, the people of whatever little town buying into this cult nonsense seems to, be vindicated and be doing, what the priests say it does and all that kind of stuff. All part of a great web of machinations being put together by a master vampire in southern Arizona by the name of Xavier Stewart, who used to be a coalition officer, who is just a little nobody and couldn't really get further in life, and becoming a master vampire is now allowing him to have his plans of being both, like a big espionage puppet master / general of his own military, although that's still building. With Reed's Rangers, going off on their crusade against the vampire kingdoms in central Mexico, and the recent destruction of the Ixots intelligence, there's been some disruption on the Rio Grande, like a whole chunk of feral vampires and even a few of the secondary vampires, any of them that were connected and downwind of the Ixots intelligence are now gone, and so that's up to like a third to a quarter of the feral vampires along the Mexican border have just suddenly disappeared. So it would seem that things are going positively and that things are looking up. However, at the back door of the Rio Grande region up there in New Mexico, there's something dark on the horizon, and that is the Hell Lord Zugard from the Minion War, who's building a hell pit there somewhat more quietly than the others. who's surrounded by death demons, who are themselves, you can kind of say, are like a vampire demon of sorts, you know, who will transform other creatures into death demons, mortal or a supernatural being alike. And so just as the people are kind of starting to feel that, you know, things are going better in the region, suddenly there's going to be this new demonic vampiric threat, which might end up causing some very strange bedfellow alliances indeed, because suddenly Xavier Stewart and his army of vampires operating out of Tombstone might actually be quite an effective intelligence-gathering resource for player characters in heroic nations, city-states such as El Paso, or even the Coalition themselves. Considering that Xavier Stewart has Coalition connections, maybe he might want to try to filter some messages back to the CS Lone Star about, you know, like specific locations for Zugard's army and his Hell Pit. And player characters might, you know, be a good, you know, go-between for that kind of stuff and allow them to discover what's going on at Tombstone. There's little, like I said, little enclaves, the beginning nuggets of vampire kingdoms to be found, you know, in the northern parts of northern Mexico and up into the southwestern United States. As you know, they go up as far north, you'll find vampires in places like the ruins of Dallas and even Silverado and I believe Durango in Colorado. And there's also places like Brisbane and, of course, Juarez, while claiming to be vampire-free, has, you know, quite a good amount of, you know, vampire gangs living in its midst and all that kind of stuff. The border region of the old U.S.-Mexico civilizations are in turmoil and at a turning point, and it might seem like things are looking on the up and up, but until Zugard is dealt with, things, you know, actually could get very, very bad very, very quickly. Zugard, spoiler alert for players, but Zugard is, you know, like possessed by an avatar of the apocalypse demon Death and is going to slowly turn into an apocalypse demon, which also allows this area to be a place where you can bring in some interesting cameos for some of the NPCs to be found in Rifts Africa from the Gathering of Heroes and all that kind of stuff to maybe make a return appearance to take down Death once again before he's able to remanifest and, you know, the whole shebang with the Four Horsemen starts all over again, but this time in North America. An apocalypse amidst an already apocalyptic event that is the Minion War. But yeah, so there's things to do there, so go do them and stay waspinated.